Oh man, there's so many little things that I ended up missing. The whole crest thing too. To catch you guys up, if you didn't know, we did stream Silent Hill F here on the channel. It was the very first Silent Hill game I ever played. I was completely blind on it, and when we finished it, I did not know that there were multiple endings. Now, while I was enjoying making up theories with Kiwi while we were streaming the game, especially during the later half of the first ending, that kind of rug pull sort of killed my motivation to continue playing the game, not gonna lie. So today, I'm here to see exactly what happened, because, well, honestly, the story is really intriguing, and it's been nagging at me. I need to know. And it also looks like Gingy has done a retrospective on the entire Silent Hill series, so I might check that out later. But of course, before we get into the video, as per usual, please make sure to go support the OG video. Link to that is at the very top of the description, like always. Now, I do have my theories as to what exactly happened, but I'll try and talk about it as we go through the video.
This video will explain the entire story of Silent Hill F. I'll be going over the ancient history of the town and its dark secrets, as well as the main story, characters, monsters, all the endings, and the real story that the game seems to be hiding from us. As always, I'd like to issue a spoiler warning. Once this intro is over, we'll be talking endgame spoilers immediately, so you've been warned. Please beat the game and come back. I'd also like to thank Konami for giving me a code to the game early. While not necessary viewing to understand Silent Hill F, if you are looking for more Silent Hill content from me, I made a massive retrospective last year talking about the rest of the series. From dev interviews to analyses and explanations on the story, I covered all there was to know about Silent Hill, even the lesser known titles. So if you're interested, you could check that out. But with that out of the way, let's get started. So I'd like to begin by breaking down the religious history of the town. Then I'd like to recap the main story and ending.
Yeah, I mean, from the information that we got, it seemed pretty clear that there was some sort of cult that had formed here around the fox god. But then there was also this massive tree and talks of a sacred divine sword or something along those lines. I'm not really sure how that fits into the plotline as a whole, because I don't think we saw it at all during the very first ending. I think, depending on what you do with that sword in the other endings, you get either or.
Usually I add in some theory and speculation during these moments, but I want to save that for its own section this time. Because now that we're past spoiler territory, I can reveal that I believe a significant portion of this game is fake, and takes place within the head of the main character.
Oh yeah, I think that's pretty clear as you go through the game. There's really only one explanation, and it has to be that this is all happening inside of her head. It really does feel like all the letters that we find of how other people think of us is more so how we think they think of us, as opposed to how they actually talk to us. And especially with this first ending here, where it does seem like we're kind of a junkie going on a trip, that we are a very unreliable narrator.
Silent Hill F is a game of multiple interpretations. There is the straightforward religious plot of the gods and their hold over the town, and then there is the metaphors and symbolism that point to this game being the main character's attempt to make a decision about an arranged marriage she's been forced into. With much of the game,
I wonder if the arranged marriage was part of the whole thing where her father supposedly sold her off in order to clear his debts, or if that was just another one of the things that she made up in her head.
Not only hinting at this, but specific dialogue and scenes being metaphors that allude to it. But none of that will make sense unless I explain the basics. So first, let's break down the religious history and the main story to cover the basic straightforward plot, then spend the rest of the video talking about those metaphors. So Silent Hill F sees us navigating the 1960s Japanese town of Ibisugaoka. But the history of this now quiet town dates back a long time. According to the Nihon Shoki, a book of Japanese creation myth, long ago there was an 8-headed dragon named Yamata no Orochi, who demanded the sacrifice of young girls. The god of the sea Susanoo caught wind of this and decided to get the dragon drunk on some sake. As the dragon became intoxicated, the god cut off all of its heads. Ibisugaoka's history books continue this myth by stating that one of the heads landed not far from the town of Higa no Kuni, the original name of the town. Eventually, this head would come back to life as a poisonous water dragon and would plague the land for many years. Now many, including a local historian, question the myth's validity. The town has had many toxic gas leaks over the years due to underground water streams. Seeing as this addendum to the creation myth is only known within the town, some wonder if this was an attempt to explain the unfortunate circumstances that plagued the townsfolk. Regardless, the people of Higa no Kuni would then worship this divine entity, but later documents in scripture point to a transition in worship.
These kind of, folklore or just a local history that leans more towards mythology sometimes can be quite fascinating, where it's really just a matter of like, did we come up with these things in order to explain things that we couldn't have known before? Because at the time, that sort of knowledge just wasn't available. Or is there actually some sort of merit to these legends, these local legends? It's hard to say, but that is one of the facets of human history that I really enjoy.
At the tail end of the Heian period in 1170 CE, a war broke out between the Taira and the Minamoto clans. The Taira clan had lost the war and their power was dissolved. It's reported that members of the clan fled to all places across Japan looking for sanctuary. Some of them managed to find their way to Ibisu-gaoka. In fact, it's believed that this is where the town's current name originated from, as the kanji for Ibisu holds the meaning of a person who has migrated far away. Unable to restore their clan to its former glory, those who remained vowed to take revenge. They then buried the sword of their leader at the base of a great tree.
The sword.
According to legend, one day in the middle of the Kamakura period, so likely around mid to late 1200s, a monk donning multiple masks measuring over 3 meters, or almost 10 feet tall, would visit the town. The monk brought the people to the great cedar tree. He told the townsfolk, quote, "You who fear the water dragon's wrath, quake no more, for the beast grows weak and prepares for slumber. It is none other than this great tree that has sapped the evil from it. Devote yourself to the great tree, and it shall keep the beast subdued until the end of time."
Holy hell, what is going on here? This is probably one of the bosses that you end up fighting during a different ending once you replay the game. Because I don't think we fought Shu at all during the initial ending.
The townsfolk then abandoned the water dragon faith and converted to the divine tree faith. But even this faith would evolve with time. The town in the modern day lives on the outskirts. Only one bridge connects it to the main city. This is very likely the same problem that plagued the townspeople back in the day. Due to its location, trade was rare, practically non-existent. So the people of the town had to be extra careful with their tools. This would lead to the birth of the Tsukumogami faith. The definition isn't fully understood, but in some circles it's believed that tools over 100 years possess souls and become self-aware. The people will then take their old tools back to the divine tree as an offering to the gods.
You gotta lay to rest.
Then, in the Edo period, so somewhere between the 16 to 1800s, another change in faith occurred, as the divine tree was struck by lightning and burned down. By this time, the Tsukumogami faith had a grip on their land, so the people of the town treated old objects with sacredness. Having seen that their oldest object of worship be destroyed, the townsfolk moved to the next oldest thing, which was an Inari statue. Inari is the god of foxes, rice, and tea, as well as other things like success and prosperity. She is one of the main gods within Shintoism, and thus has been known for quite some time. However, the townspeople had mixed the faith of Inari and Tsukumogami to create their own unique faith exclusive to the town. A local historian of the modern day who's been reading up on the town's history, and one who is rather displeased with the town's, quote, superficial faith, asked a local priest about this phenomenon, who then said that Inari came to them in their time of need. The divine tree was the only thing holding back the power of the water dragon, but due to its absence, the town was susceptible to its terror once more. But that was until a family of foxes far out west traveled here to subdue the creature. Faith in the foxes is what bolsters their power, so it's up to the townspeople to pray to the foxes so that they can find the strength to hold the dragon back. Looking into the town, the area where the dragon was subdued has a surprising number of onsens. Removing the religious aspect, the onsens seem to release toxic gas that sprout from the ground like geysers. An investigation has found that land near the mountains has a brittle
Oh, yeah, this was the path leading like right behind Hinako's house, I believe. I thought that would open up at some point. Maybe it does in the different endings, but in the first one, you don't get to explore over there at all. It's just kind of a barrier.
Surface as well, and that with enough time, a landslide will occur. But the residents have pushed back on this idea, claiming that there hasn't been one in over hundreds of years, and that Inari is the one who protects them from it. While it could be seen as strange that people would be so willing to put their trust in such a thing, there could be some truth to their claims. The people of Ibisu-gaoka worshipped a twisted combination of Tsukumogami and Inari faith. All across town are various shrines dedicated to Inari and her foxes, with tools sometimes being laid out as offerings. But this debate over their religious history and the constant switching of deities has led to some controversy. In 1880, 13 residents of Ibisu-gaoka were killed in broad daylight. The killer was thought to be a man over 2 meters tall and covered in tree bark made to look like armor. The man was supposedly chanting about the divine tree and how if they don't pray, the dragon will come back and kill them. The same local historian from before believes that it was someone from the divine tree faith who wanted the people to return to worshipping it, even assuming that the garb he wore was meant to mimic the monk who first visited their land. But due to the faith in Inari, the incident is merely a small footnote in their history, and if anything, Many believe that it was the work of the divine that smited the man in the first place. One eyewitness report says that a thick fog had crept in along with a pack of glowing wolves. They circled the man, and then before long, both the man, the foxes, and the fog were gone, leaving nothing behind.
Is that why the town is covered in fog in this instance? Because, like, where is the beginning of our delusions? Or is it all literally just from the very beginning, all inside our head? Because later on in the first ending, we see that the fog monster was actually Hinako, who had gotten married to the fox dude, but then came back as like this monstrous being and was being egged on by her older sister to kill the other Hinako. And maybe there's something there because that's all sort of related to the foxes.
Further, over time, both Inari and her foxes seem to have been conflated within the faith. See, Inari is a goddess, sometimes referred to as Uka no Mitama, while the fox is her messenger, but many seem to worship them as one and the same, or only mention the fox. A girl named Sakuko, who is a deep believer in faith, believes that both Inari and the fox are in a supernatural battle for power, and that the fox usurped the goddess's position, which explains the discrepancy. But the powers of the fox seem to be far more sinister and far more powerful than you may ever imagine. One of the more notable families in the game's story is the Tsunekis. They are known for their wealth and their status. Every generation, the head of the family is known to have a talent for business, and has used times of social unrest to bolster their wealth further.
I wonder if this was the family that had their people die off because of a disease that could be cured. Pretty sure we read something about that at the first ending.
One woman would become a housemaid for the family and document her time
the housemaid,
there.
yeah.
She recalls the day the young heir of the family and a noblewoman would be arranged in marriage. The heir had relationships with many women though, so he was forced to end all of them, including one with a housemaid named Sachi. Sachi is important because she carries their child within her. Because the arrangement had already been made, the two had vowed to run away and start a new life together. But when the call came down, he would ultimately cast her aside. The Tsunekis then forced her out and left her somewhere far from home. However, the housemaid notes that the child is unmistakably a descendant of the Tsunekis.
And then the kid that Hinako saved from a fox back when they were kids, because I'm pretty sure we saw like a vision of that as we went through the playground near the later half of the first ending. I wonder if that's the child or if that ties into it at all.
Saying that she believes this child will make their move when tragedy strikes the wealthy family. A pair of notes in-game titled Strict Mother's Letter seems to be written by Sachi to her son.
Yeah, that's
she
what I
mentions how he
assume.
has noble blood in his veins and that she was never able to reacquaint him with his father, likely on account of her being kicked out when the arrangement was finalized.
Mm-hmm.
The boy, named Koto Yuki, would then walk into town and play with some of the other kids. His mother had forbidden him from doing lots of things children would normally do, as she knew that one day he would be the clan leader, so she needed to prepare him for that day. One day, though, he was out with some kids who were chasing a fox throughout the village. The fox had lashed out at the boy, giving him deep cuts at risk of scarring. When taken to the local doctor, Koto Yuki had passed out. He was then taken to a proper hospital to be looked at professionally. Upon arrival, however, the doctors detected no abnormalities, and he was cleared to leave the following morning. But something was off about him. When the doctor called out to him, using his name, Koto Yuki responded, "Ah, so that is my name." The boy's mother had also noticed that he's been applying himself to his schoolwork a lot more than usual. In truth, the boy had been possessed by the spirit of the fox.
I see. Because of the initial interaction between the fox and the boy. So does that mean the guy that Hirgo ends up marrying here is Kotoyuki? Or at least maybe just a representation of him? Or I guess to be more correct, it would be the fox spirit, because Kotoyuki might not be there anymore.
Fox possession is a common occurrence amongst many folks. A shaman who was possessed by a fox was given premonitions of a great famine. Through this, he was able to stockpile enough food to help his people survive. Another woman helped a starving fox only to be possessed by one and guarded towards some great treasure. But while this seems to be portrayed as a blessing, it can lead to a curse. For a few others who were supposedly possessed by a fox, they experienced great pains and even a desire to crawl on all fours. The possession of the boy likely came from the fox bite he suffered earlier. The boy's father then died sometime later, leaving the spot of clan leader open for him to claim, although this would require him to leave Ibisu Gaoka to join his family. This Tsuneki
And then we do have the letters of him saying goodbye to Hinako, I'm pretty sure.
clan is tied to the Inari. If you'll recall, the 8-headed dragon, back when it had that many, demanded young women for sacrifice, but even with the power of the fox, it was still not enough to quench its thirst. So every 8 years a sacrifice must be made. A maiden pure of heart, one whose blood has been blessed by the stars and fate, shall be sacrificed. Her blood will be mixed with wine and distilled 8 times over. Her organs are then replaced with rice that has been mixed with the master's saliva before being sewn shut. Then the body shall rest undisturbed until the odor of the wine rises from its skin. She will then be adorned in a garb befitting a bride, laid atop a raft, and sent out to sea. Only then will the beast be quelled. But as a precaution, the ancestors of the clan also put in place a seal that would act as a lock to its prison. Atop this giant rock that would serve as the lock is a shrine called Heaven's Benediction, which would
So is that the dark shrine that we see throughout the entire game?
serve as a sanctuary for the clan. Should the seal fail, the clan, sanctuary, and the land will go with it. It seems as though women were lured into their chambers and killed to quell this ancient being. A girl named Mayumi wrote some notes that we can find in this shrine. In the town is a notice board that lists her disappearance, so it seems as though she was taken or lured here. Along with fox possession is a term called fox wedding. Older folks use this term to describe when a girl is spirited away. It's not entirely clear if this was created to give families a way to heal from the troubling revelation that their daughters were kidnapped, but it seems to have caught on. Well, Mayumi seems to have been spirited away and taken to the shrine. She writes about the relationship between gods and mortals and comments on her blessed blood. She then goes on to ponder who the next person will be, saying that she will do her best to make sure they transition well into their new life.
Which is Hinako.
However, we never hear from her again, and given her explicit mention of the blessed blood, it's fair to assume the worst.
Yeah.
It's also possible that Sakuko may have been next, or was at least being scouted by the clan.
Really?
I know in-game mentions the Igarshi family, which is Sakuko's, commenting on how they are the last descendants, although it's unclear whether they meant the last descendants of the clan or those of blessed blood. Inari also made sure that they ruled with fear. The man who has been documenting much of the town's history did so with a purpose. He did this to expose the corruption underneath. His father called out the town for using faith as a way to embezzle taxes from the locals. Shortly after he died in
Oh, of course. Yeah, faith could be a powerful thing, but it could also be used for the wrong reasons.
an accident, with many claiming it was a divine punishment. He would then later become an atheist, hoping to show the people through research their twisted and manipulative faith. But he writes this journal we find of his because he slowly started dying. At the beginning of the month, he lost his appetite. Eating any food at all results in him vomiting. Within all that vomit was the larva of a locust. The day before he wrote these notes, he woke up to—
Oh, the doctor's house, right, was talking about that. How the autopsy had revealed that there were, like, locusts and stuff inside of him. Really weird. I had no idea how that fit in, but we had thought initially that it was, like, some sort of curse from the cult.
a sudden coughing fit, only to cough out a grasshopper and a cricket. He can barely move at this point in the journal, not only surrounded by bugs, but also the constant noise of them inside his body. He could feel them move around in his skull, even planting their eggs to grow more. But even in this final moment, he refuses to believe that this was divine punishment for questioning the gods. However, his circumstance is not unique. A local farmer told his son about a story of 2 drunk police officers that kicked over a statue of Inari. The following day, the officers' bodies were found with insects and small bugs inside them. 9 other cases have been reported, all having the same MO, with bugs and eggs either near or within the victim. One of whom even claimed to bear a grudge against Inari. Police who handled these bodies were also reportedly disposing of them without so much as a second glance being granted to them, possibly in fear of angering the gods who punished these people. So it's clear that something is going on, and yet somehow, it gets worse. Something stirred within Koto Yuki. He remembered the girl who helped patch him up when the fox attacked him. He was so in love with her that he wanted to study and become better so that he could be her perfect match. He wants nothing more than to make this girl his wife. According to the nine-tailed fox who possesses him, once in a blue moon, a girl is born who is blessed with extraordinary power. When born, the successor of their clan has a curse placed upon him, which gives him a desire to seek out that girl and make her his wife. This girl happens to be the one who helped Koto Yuki when the fox injured him.
So yeah. I wonder if, in terms of, like, fox possession, it's more so, like, both souls are kind of residing in the same body, or it just slightly affects the way a person acts. More like a spirit that is sort of guiding you in a certain direction. So Kotoyuki would still be there, and that would mean that the fox dude who we do end up marrying is Kotoyuki. Obviously, the girl who saved Kotoyuki from the fox was Hinako.
One he's been obsessing over. That being none other than our protagonist, Shimizu Hinako.
Yeah.
That was a quick rundown of the history of the town and the backstory behind some of the game's events. Like I said earlier, I'd like to now talk about the literal interpretation of the game's story regarding Koto Yuki, Hinako, and the fox god that moves the plot forward. Afterwards, I'll delve into the metaphors and the more speculative parts of the game. As such, much of this current section will recap the game's events and endings. If you've just come off a playthrough and already understand the events of this story, feel free to skip ahead to the next chapter in the timeline. For everyone else, let's continue. The game begins with Hinako being yelled at by her father.
Well, I mean, we have already played it, but just in case there was something that we missed, we'll go through this section.
To get away from it all, she decides to go into town and see some of her friends.
I guess just the first
She'll meet
ending.
with her friend Shu, whom she's hung out with since they were kids, and her other friends Rinko and Sakuko.
Yeah, this moment was kind of strange. I mean, the father was yelling at her, so maybe that was it. Or maybe there was already these plans to have her be married off, and so she kind of wanted to just hang with her friends for now.
During their talk, though, some kind of corruption sneaks into the town. It kills Sakuko while the others manage to flee.
Immediately
As Hinako is
gets
chased
got.
by a being barely seen within the fog, she is saved by an unknown person who she believes to be her sister Junko. She'll happen to find her way back to the store where Sakuko was killed. As she leaves the store, she is attacked by various creatures conjured up by the corruption before collapsing. Hinako will collapse at various points throughout the game and end up in the Dark Shrine world. Once again, I'll talk about this in just a moment. As she wakes up, Shu and Hinako try to look for Rinko, who fled in another direction and went back home. As they meet with Rinko, it's pretty clear that she's not happy to see Hinako, as she was only hoping it was just Shu. The trio then devises a plan to escape, but can't as the only bridge connecting the town to the major city was destroyed. So they decide to go to Shu's place, as there is a highway behind their mountain that they could use to escape. Rinko and Hinako then go downstairs to get some bandages for the road ahead, but Rinko pushes Hinako down the stairs. As she walks in to see what
I mean, did she actually do that? Because the camera cut away specifically. I mean, that's what they suggested happen. But this is also where we were like, is all this happening inside our head? And are we creating a narrative where these characters like absolutely hate us that are doing these to us? They're being so unfair towards us. How could they? But that's just how we think they think of us.
happens, Rinko simply calls her a klutz for falling. Hinako seems well aware of what happened, although she refuses to speak up about it.
Yeah.
The three then maneuver their way through the streets while making their way to the middle school, as that is the next path they need to take. As they walk around the school, they find that the gate is locked, which forces Hinako to find a key. Once she does, they offer to keep guard while she rests.
And
After
then
her
they
nap,
leave.
she finds that both of them have disappeared. Assuming they went on ahead, she makes her way to Shu's house, only to not find them there either. A knock on the door is heard. Believing it to be Rinko and Shu, she opens the door only to find the fog monster from earlier. As she awakes once more, she will get a call from her mother telling her to come home, with Rinko and Shu's screams being heard in the background. As she makes her way back home, she finds that her home is not what it used to be. Rooms have been added and altered, even hers. Within the house is also a shadow version of herself. The shadow version of
You're not me! No matter how many times that happens, it always happens the exact same way. Now that I think about it too, fog was also used as a very important plot point in that game.
her urges to think. Think about what's going on. She subtly hints at the fact of her being the fog monster, as she says that she could have killed her at any point, but there is a reason she let her live. If she doesn't figure it out soon though, the shadow will have no choice but to kill her, her family, her friends, and everyone else. After she navigates through the maze of rooms, she will find Shu, Rinko, and Sakuko all hanging from the ceiling, while her mother and father seem to be affected by the corruption. After she defeats this corruption, we can see it leave their bodies before they walk outside. Following behind them, Hinako sees the fog monster, which grabs her parents and kills them. While this is all happening, during the moments where Hinako is either knocked out,
Dark
sleeping,
Shrine,
or passing out, she's being transported to another dimension, called the Dark Shrine world. Evidence in-game points to this being Silent Hill F's take on the other world. The other world was a different plane of existence.
Oh, okay. So it was just something that is kind of like a constant throughout the Silent Hill games, I would assume?
So to speak, that was layered on top of the real world and the fog world. It was noted that the other world was different for each person. Angela at the end of Silent Hill 2 was seen on a burning staircase. She claimed that it was always like this, whereas for James, this was the first time he was seeing it, implying that they were each seeing different things. Silent Hill F seems to be following the same formula. One note describes this place as hell, while the other a paradise, with flowers and lakes. Hinako's seems to not match either description, thus this represents her own specific otherworld, or Dark Shrine as the journal calls it. Initially, she is lost, having no clue where she has ended up, but she'll later make the acquaintance of a guy simply known as Fox Mask. Fox Mask acts like a regular old Prince Charming, caring for and helping Hinako when she needs it.
But why does he leave us to fend for ourselves when we fight against the monsters, huh? What's up with that? And freaking Shu just always like walking off on his own, disappearing into the fog. It's really those moments where it's like, are you even real? Or are you a figment of my imagination?
While walking with him, Hinako is told about a ritual that she must undergo. We can see that she seems to be in a delusion, as she doesn't actually see Fox Mask, yet is still obeying him.
Yeah.
She is then convinced to take part in the ritual, which begins by killing her friends. All of them are already within the traps that will take their lives.
This was so cold of her to do. Like, Jesus. It actually really piqued my interest, though, when we got to this section. So far, the game was pretty to me, at least. Until we got here, then I was like, what is up with our protagonist, man? What is happening in this story?
Ko just has to get the mechanism working. Despite her friends pleading with her, she stays silent, unwilling to offer them a reason for her actions. They also die in the same way the game presented them earlier, with Shu hanging in both scenes, and Rinko having noticeable burn marks on her body as she was dropped into lava. She will then be forced to cut off her own arm and replace it with a large white fox arm, get the family crest burned onto her back, and have her face peeled off and replaced with a fox mask. You can tell by this point that Hinako is completely under his spell. She barely feels any pain during the process and continues to obey him at every turn. She does start to slip though, questioning if she is Shimizu Hinako, constantly repeating her name to herself as if she's trying to convince herself who she really is.
Well, after having a think about it, with all the messages being like, Shimizu Hinako is dead, I'm Hinako and stuff like that, I feel as if that's more so alluding to what we learned from the first ending with like her going berserk, like right before her wedding or something like that, where she can only identify herself by her given name now because of the wedding. Her family name wouldn't be hers anymore, and maybe that's supposed to allude to that.
With most of the ritual complete, it's on to the ceremony. The two get together and exchange wedding bands. This opens the final door, and after enough time, Hinako can be seen infected with the corruption before returning into the Shiromuku, aka the Fog Monster. Back to where we left off, Hinako then goes after the Fog Monster, threatening revenge for what it did to her family. She confronts the beast at the center of town, the epicenter of the corruption, before being killed. Fog Monster Hinako then makes her way back home, meets with her parents, and kills them, just as we saw only a few minutes ago. Hinako, despite just dying, then wakes up in the Dark Shrine world. She doesn't recognize this place and has never been here before, despite what we saw earlier.
Yeah.
She'll find the altar where Hinako and the Fox Mask got married, and then find Junko. She starts to have a panic attack as she isn't sure where she is and doesn't like it here. She then hastily pulls out a pillbox from her pocket. Shu gave these to—
Okay, now that was one of the things that I did enjoy from Silent Hill F. The twist that the red pills that you're using to heal yourself were actually some drug that you were addicted to.
Her at the beginning of the game, and you've likely seen them around the map. She then takes more pills, fights with Junko over them, destroys the table of offerings, and then confronts the Shiromuku again. A fight to the death ensues with Hinako coming out on top. She will then run away to safety, but the world flashes between the real world and the Dark Shrine world. We can also hear the voices of other people as she sprints by them. She then, while dazed and exhausted, finds the Shiromuku again, threatening to kill it before it cuts to black.
But yeah, are these like police sirens? Is it the police surrounding us right now because we went on like some sort of acid trip just going around town hurting people? Is that what happened?
As the ending comes to a close, we hear of a police report. A woman in her 20s armed with a knife and wearing a wedding dress killed people at a ceremony. Pills found at the wedding venue were also found at the altar, the very same pills that Hinako just took. Now the reason why Shu gave these to her is something that's discussed in Ending 2. I did however want to note that there is a growing sentiment amongst the fanbase that this substance is White Claudia. This drug was last seen in Silent Hill 1 and was described as a white flower grown near water and used in religious ceremonies. It was also described as a hallucinogen. Silent Hill 2 Remake added this drug into its game to create a new ending that sees James hallucinate his life with Mary. The reason for the connection is that the drugs clearly made Hinako hallucinate.
Yeah.
There is also a white flower growing near some water next to Shu's house, and he recently read up on an herb that's said to also be used in religious ceremonies.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And yeah, we did find all those notes in regards to the medicine being made from the flower or whatnot. And I believe there were descriptions of the flower, that medicine, specifically giving you the ability to see the self within the self and stuff like that, and how Shu had made them for her, which I guess is why we were experiencing the things that we were during the first ending. The way that it's worded seems like it's a religious experience, but it's really just you're on a high, basically. And yeah, I wasn't aware that this was something that was already present within the Silent Hill lore, as I don't know anything about the previous games.
But once this ending has been achieved, you gain access to New Game Plus as well as the other endings. Endings 2 and 3 result in both versions of Hinako confronting each other. In Ending 2, Hinako is angry that her Fox version took away her parents and her friends. Vowing to get her life back, she fights the Fox version but is corrupted by some evil spirit and is sent away. Shu then comes in and tries to save Fox Hinako from Fox Mask, who we learn is named Koto Yuki. Koto Yuki wants to build a life with her, while Shu wants things to stay the same, and she can't accept that. Sooner or later she will have to grow up and move on, and Koto Yuki will let her. Shu admits that he gave her the pills so that she couldn't get married to Koto Yuki, further hoping that she would have seen how much he cared for her and that he would be a better candidate.
I mean, it was pretty obvious that Shu preferred Hinako. Regardless of what Riko was trying to do, like, yeah, that wasn't happening.
But he also says that it was wrong of him to do that, and he should care about his best friend and her accomplishments.
Very true.
Shu then transforms into a demon named Tsukumo Gami. Fox Hinako kills it, removing its hold over Shu. Shu then talks to Koto Yuki. Both of them talk to Hinako like an object. Shu mentions how Koto Yuki must look after her and that he is simply lending her to him. Koto Yuki corrects him though, saying that Hinako is his and belongs to him only. Ultimately though, the boys do agree that they are the only ones who truly understand her and become friends in the end. We can then see Fox Hinako in the Shiramuku outfit again, and the final scene shows her and Koto Yuki seemingly happy with their new life together. But then we see Hinako's face on the floor in distress as she worries that she will be just like her mother, an outcome she does not want. In Ending 3, she fights with Fox Hinako again but is stopped by Koto Yuki. Shu then comes by and attacks him with a bat. Koto Yuki then transforms into a seven-tailed fox. Throughout the fight, Koto Yuki goes back to his human form. He tells her that he's done everything
dude, this is a pretty cool fight.
to make sure her life is the best, and yet even after all that, she still rejects him. All Hinako ever wanted though was to live her own life and make her own decisions.
Yeah.
In the end, Koto Yuki goes back to his human form and understands that he was wrong. Hinako won't forget his kindness and thanks him for understanding her. She and Shu then leave, comment on each other's outfits, and prance around the town. But reports came in that the geysers within the town have sprouted, forcing everyone to evacuate the town. The Tsuneki clan was holding back the poisonous water dragon from destroying the town, but now that they've been defeated and the seal over the prison was removed, nothing is able to stop the beast from enacting its revenge. In the fourth and true ending, Fox Hinako and Hinako realize that they are just pawns in a religious war.
Oh my god. They're just pawns in a religious war. Well, Umineko, anyone? I should have known. Of course he would have written it this way.
Inari wants to keep its faith intact, while the Tsukumo Gami wants to remove Inari, and they've been using the two Hinakos to enact their plans. In the end, both Hinakos face off against their respective bosses and defeat them, not only rescuing Koto Yuki, who's also been a pawn in this large war, but also giving them the chance to finally choose their own destiny. And then, finally, in classic Silent Hill fashion, it has a joke ending. Ribisu Gaoka is the plot of a movie that sparked her and Shu's interest in a game they played called Space Wars.
Yeah.
They attempt to find out who the real alien is amongst the group, as the aliens are disguised as humans.
Among Us.
While they were unable to find any, the mastermind behind the alien invasion is revealed to be Mira the dog, who, even 20 years later, is still causing havoc in the world of Silent Hill.
What the hell is that? So you're telling me that this random dog with headphones shows up in other Silent Hill games too? Is the dog just like a constant throughout all the joke endings?
Hopefully this explains the story of Silent Hill F, at least in regards to how the game tells it to us. Now that the literal interpretation of the game has been explained, we can now move into the more speculative but more interesting section about how Hinako might be making all of this up. The game never explicitly says that this is the case, but there are a few moments that hint at this, and when understood, lots of the game's meaning changes in the process.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to save this rambling for last. A lot is going on in Silent Hill F, and a lot of events that occur can be seen as metaphorical, while those same events can be taken literally. For Hinako,
it is so hard to parse through what is real and what isn't. And I'm sure different people will have different interpretations of certain scenes. But I guess maybe that was the intent of the author.
Specifically, I once again believe this story takes place entirely within her own head, as she attempts to grapple with her arranged marriage, and the endings are what happened during the real ceremony. In Ending 1, the police report says that the suspect is in her 20s, despite Hinako wearing a high school uniform. And in Ending 3, the two playfully joke about their outfits. Hinako says that Shu looks pretty weird in a tie, while Shu says that she looks pretty weird in that. with Shu,
but he's not wearing a tie. So this is dialogue from the wedding ceremony. And is like all this happening in her head right before she gets married off, because like she's really struggling to grasp the straws. Like it's a very emotional time for her. Perhaps even the two gods that are using the different versions of Hinako to go to war with each other are just representations of like authoritative figures within her life.
Isn't wearing a tie, and Hinako's outfit is a common school uniform, something she's worn throughout the whole game. Her outfit also goes back to normal at the end too, despite no indication that it was swapped out for a new one. Shu might actually be wearing a suit and tie, while Hinako could be wearing the Shiromuku dress, as that was traditionally worn during a wedding. The talks with Junko then, where she mentions Hinako running out of time, is in reference to her wedding day. Hinako and Fox Hinako are two sides of the same Hinako, the one who wants to marry Koto Yuki and the other who doesn't. That's why endings 2 and 3 are basically what happens if one side wins.
The internal struggle.
If the Fox version wins, she gets married, and that's the side of her that wanted Koto Yuki's hand in marriage.
Yeah, and then in the one where the other Hinako wins, the one that goes on a rampage, we literally just murder a few people and run away, which is kind of insane. Like, what a crash out.
Ending 3 was won by the side that didn't want that, which explains why she escapes with Shu. And these boss fights are really just arguments and discussions. That's why neither Shu nor Koto Yuki dies, they just come to an understanding. Hinako's conversations with Shu also seem to suggest that the two are reminiscing and talking about her dilemma. Shu continually says how he will always respect her decision, no matter what, meaning that her choice to get married or not is her own, and that he will be okay with whatever she chooses.
Oh, that's that's very clever to hide this here. I thought it was just like words of reassurance just in general, but or like in regards to her father and her life as a whole, but yeah, it can be taken that way if we're looking at it in the context of like the wedding day.
Hinako also mentions that both she and Shu are thinking of the past despite all that's going on. This one has a bit of a double meaning, as it's both a reference to the monsters and literal destruction of the town, but one can also interpret this as them thinking back on their childhood, the day of her wedding.
Yeah.
That's why I believe the real Hinako is much older, and on her wedding day is...
Does that mean that the person that we see at the beginning here isn't Junko, but it's like an older version of Hinako?
Thinking back to her life as a teen, while trying to come up with a decision as to what to do about this marriage with Koto Yuki. As for why she is thinking of a younger self, well, most of this game talks about her spreading her wings like a bird. There is a near constant mention to it everywhere in-game, from puzzle pieces to in-game dialogue. Hinako hasn't grown up yet. She's running away from her problems, something that directly contributes to the first ending. This is a coming-of-age story, and one of reflection, so she's thinking back on her life in a rather vivid way to decide what to do.
A rather vivid way is lightly putting it. My goodness, we really do have to work through our demons before we commit ourselves to somebody else, you know? I guess this game is kind of just a visual representation of that.
To marry Koto Yuki, or not. And so, now that we have the basic story structure laid out, let me try to explain why I think this. Silent Hill F's main character is Shimizu Hinako. Her family consists of her father, mother, and older sister. Hinako's relationship with her family is complicated. Her father is a drunk who spends his days drinking and yelling at his family, while her mother only seeks to calm him down. She rarely ever talks back to him and accepts any punishments that come her way. This has caused her to have a rather jaded view of her family. But through it all, she still loves her sister Junko. They used to play together all the time when they were kids. However, ever since she got married, she hasn't seen her much. Marriage is not only a core part of this game, but it's a core part of Hinako's current feelings. Silent Hill F takes place during the 1960s. Marriage back then was not what it's like now. The Showa era of Japan seems to be defined by arranged marriages. This was often done for social or economic reasons, and Hinako is being married off to pay for her father's debts. Her father used to be a happy man. He had dreams of owning a restaurant with a friend of his, but that friend ran off with his money, leaving him broken in debt.
Yeah.
Hinako's mom also seems to have been diagnosed with cancer, which would require her father to take out more loans and thus have more debt to pay for.
Oh shit.
Judging by the
This we
description of
didn't
the
know.
note, it seems though Hinako also never knew about this. Hinako was then set to marry Koto Yuki, but life has taught her to fear marriage, as she sees the way it affects those of her family and how men often treat women.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable considering the life that she had lived. To be honest with you guys, I kind of felt the same way too. Well, obviously not the way that Hinako feels. But it's just, when you see so many people who are married to each other or dating each other and they all just have issues, and because of that relationship they're suffering, or like even in my own life, where when I was born, my father went to go and buy some milk and he never came back, there's always been that sort of suspicion or distrust. I think that's a word. Sorry, English isn't my first language. Whenever it comes to any sort of intimate relationship like that. So I can really only imagine what it would feel like for somebody who's gone through like much worse circumstances than I have, being right on the day of their wedding. So maybe this is a reasonable crash out.
Her father is an awful father and husband. He treats the whole family terribly. He expects Hinako to respect him, but never gives it back, and if she doesn't respect him, then he gets angry. He expects his wife to cook and clean despite being fully capable, and then complains when it's not up to his standards. He then tries to pin all of his problems on everyone else, and then drinks all day and scolds his family, even throwing a knife at Hinako during an argument. It's also rather telling that the male enemies in this game are either these disgusting large blobs of mass, or lecherous skinny beings who pounce on her and lick her face, while the women are all designed with accentuated figures. Like previous Silent Hill games, the enemies are based off the feelings and beliefs held by the protagonist, and Hinako's journal helps explain things.
Yeah, we figured as we were going through the game that like these enemies had to mean something to Hinako because, well, that's just how the game was presenting them to us as. Especially going out the theory that all this was happening inside her head, then these were things that she created within her head to be her enemies.
She described the aforementioned monsters having greedy eyes, greasy palms, and hates the fact that it's not only chummy with her, but that it never bothers attacking other men. The kashimashi, as the website calls them, is covered in wounds and stitches, contorted in various positions.
Mother?
The variant of it we find
kind of like dolls, or how Hinako maybe views how women are controlled by men. And so they are like these flesh puppet things.
In the Dark Shrine world even has swords for legs, to which she says, quote, "Did someone sever both its legs and replace them so that it could not go anywhere? Or was this creature brought into existence so that it could end up like this?" Their doll-like limbs also seem to convey the puppet-like existence that they may have.
Yeah.
Within both worlds is also this large creature made to look pregnant. Its grotesque design is clearly meant to portray her view of childbirth. She considers this monster a vile show of life, preferring to die rather than turn into something like this. Even her parents get specific mention in her journal. Her father looks exactly like one of those larger enemies within the game, conveying that she may see all the men the same.
Yeah, I think I made a comment on that actually, that this was quite literally like the larger enemies that we'd already seen before. And so it wasn't too hard to connect the father with the bigger dudes that we had to fight.
Her mother, on the other hand, has her own design. The red flowers on her body could signify markings of abuse. Other evidence throughout the game corroborates these feelings. There's a fashion magazine that says a woman is only complete when she...
Yeah, there were these things, yeah. There were also other ones where it's like, real men have to do this. Only real men drink this. And it was all like super macho stuff.
She's loved. Near a farm, you can find a note from a wife addressed to her parents asking for forgiveness. She no longer recognizes her husband, mentioning how he gets drunk and violent these days, while also mentioning a potentially selfish act. Judging from the loud bang and the fact that one of the female enemies appears, I believe that she either killed her husband or took her own life. Near Shu's house is a small shed that serves as someone's sanctuary. The writer of the note demands that there be more women here, and when you enter, various kashimashi bodies are found on the floor, with a conveniently placed male enemy right outside.
Yep.
Some notes talk about claiming Hinako and how they belong to her. There is a painting of her in the dark.
Yeah, this was super sus. I guess under this new context, it's like these are women who are married into families and then having their identities stripped from them. Because at the time, I'm pretty sure we took this more literally, where like once we got married to the Fox dude, our faces would get ripped off. And it actually did. But for the greater meaning of the story, then yeah, it's more so identity, self, the free will, and stuff like that.
Dark Shrine world. This one also removes her face along with the other women next to her. Hinako views adults, marriage, her parents, and the relationship between men and women a lot differently than most. She believes women are just objects for men, things who are treated no differently than animals. The monsters are meant to showcase either the literal wounds these women had from their husbands, or how some feel tied down by marriage, unable to escape their lives because they were born as women. She recalls the time that she saw Junko at the hospital about to give birth. All Junko could do was throw up and groan. Her hands were rough and chapped, and her face had aged decades overnight. She was...
Oh, is that why Junko looks like this to Hinako? And I wonder if Junko is also the reason why the like pregnant monster exists, because that's like how she had viewed her, or like a more grotesque version of her. Just the very act of childbirth being horrific like that.
Is a totally different person. To Hinako, this is what happens to women. They all end up like Junko or her mother, both suffering in different but many ways. This is why she could never see eye to eye with her sister. Junko is a woman who cares about the results, whereas Hinako cares about choice. In terms of marriage and happiness, Junko only seeks happiness as a result, regardless of how that comes, whereas Hinako would rather struggle and make wrong choices in life as long as she gets to say that they're hers, not choices made for her. She has a rather forward-thinking and progressive mindset when it comes to the concepts of autonomy and gender roles, which is, unfortunately for her, a rare stance to take in this era. Most accept the status quo, which she completely disagrees with. But all of this conflict about marriage, about how the women in her life are treated, and how the men she's seen act around women, it's all led to her questioning her own arranged marriage with Koto Yuki. Throughout the game, Hinako has been chased and apprehended by the Shiromuku. Its mere existence and the constant corruption that spreads throughout the town are likely meant to represent how much time she has left before she has to make a decision. Besides the red flesh, there is a significant amount of spider lilies, which often represent death and rebirth.
Yeah.
This decision, no matter which one is chosen, is going to have a major impact on Hinako's life. She will be reborn, something she even says herself, and that's
okay, I see. I knew that they represented death, but I had forgotten they also represented rebirth and I guess potentially that whole cycle. Whereas for her, it would very much seem like a new start or an end to a certain Hinako, where she will no longer be Hinako Shimizu because Hinako Shimizu is dead now. Now she's simply Hinako.
what they represent. But evidence within the game suggests that she does have feelings for Koto Yuki. Koto Yuki definitely likes Hinako. She has within her possession various notes he had sent her over the years. But a letter called Letter with a Pressed Flower was sent from Hinako to him. With my theory of mine that some of this is in her head, this makes the interactions between them a little bit different. Most of the Dark Shrine trips are about Koto Yuki cozying up to her before Hinako eventually devotes her mind and body to him. It first starts with her killing her friends. This part about the killing is actually kind of a signature flourish in this game, at least I believe it to be. Junko talks about killing her other half, Shadow Hinako talks about killing her, and various notes in the game mention that Hinako is dead or has disappeared.
It's more so like moving on rather than literally killing them, I would assume.
I assume that this is the game using colorful language to convey a point. Hinako can't possibly be dead, because the one person who believes her to be, Rinko, also talks to her throughout the game. It's clear to me that the various notes are implying that Hinako has moved on with her life because of the marriage. This connects somewhat to killing her friends, because I see this as Hinako abandoning her friends since she now has to become a wife, sort of like how Junko rarely keeps in contact with her these days.
Yeah.
She's basically being isolated from everyone so that all she has left is her husband and his family.
And that was like a part of the ritual that you had to go and do before you went to the whole marriage ceremony with Koto Yuki over here.
That's when she's expected to take part in the transformation. This transformation is meant to be gross, because that's how Hinako sees it. She's not literally replacing her arm and face, she is giving up these parts of herself to be married. Again, Hinako has a very specific view of marriage, seeing it as this depraved, meaningless thing. That's why in some of the endings, we can hear the names Shimizu Hinako and then just Hinako thrown around. Women often take the names of their husbands, so she will no longer be Shimizu Hinako anymore, just Hinako. At the end of the game, her father says that she isn't welcome back. Even if she returns alone, do not expect to be welcomed home. In the patriarchal system that Hinako lives through, most women were absorbed into the husband's families, and they were likely expected to stay that way. It's the most likely explanation for why the women in the Dark Shrine world have all these masks with stitches on them similar to Hinako's, while the men simply have masks and an unaffected face. The women are expected to upend their entire lives and move in with a whole new family, likely never seeing their old friends and family again, while the men simply just have a new wife. It's probably why the game tells you to head to the Shimizu residence and not call it home, despite the previous chapters using terms like Rinko's house and Shu's home.
That is a pretty good catch, actually. I don't think I caught this. So yeah, all these little things just reinforcing this particular idea. And I think this interpretation is probably the most correct one, because there's way too many things alluding towards it that it could possibly be something else, right? Well, I mean, maybe there is more hidden beneath the surface, but who knows?
Those are their places, their homes. To To Hinako, her home is now just
It's
the
not her home
Shimizu
now.
residence, as she is no
Yeah, and that's why when she comes home, it feels like such a strange place. Okay. Yep.
longer a part of her original family. It may even explain why Hinako points out that the house looks different than she remembers. In the coming years, the house will be renovated and changed while she's off with her husband, so even her old memories will soon wither away. One of the notes in-game, the solemn letter, even says that when the flesh has rotted away and bone turned to dust, thou shalt serve, implying that even in death, she will still be a part of this new family. This erosion of her past life is what scares her. I think that's why there is such an emphasis on the Shimizu part of her name, because she'll be giving that up to be with someone she's forced to be with, while also adopting their new way of life and status. Thus why she has a fox mask and the crest of the family on her back. She would be a different woman, who will have to be with
Oh, man. There's so many little things that I ended up missing. The whole crest thing, too. Yeah, she's literally being branded as a part of this family. And because of that, she can kind of freely navigate throughout the mansion or the Dark Shrine. Being branded to become part of the family is pretty intense, though. That sounds like some mafia stuff.
the husband she never got to choose, who will also have to say goodbye to her parents and friends as she will likely never see them again. Or, even if she does, as Fox Hinako says in Ending 2, it will not be like it used to be, and the thought of that terrifies her.
It would terrify
Besides this,
anyone.
the rest of the game also focuses on Hinako's relationship with her friends. Hinako was someone who really didn't conform to the traditional expectations of gender. Many of the girls liked to play with dolls, while the boys would play hide and seek or dodgeball. She, however, liked to play both, but her peers never accepted her. The boys only saw her as a girl, so they never invited her, and the girls saw how much she played with the boys, so they didn't want her either. Rinko also asks why Hinako always talks so manly, when to her this is just how she speaks. Hinako finds all of this rather strange. She says that kids of the Showa era never get along with the opposite gender, which confuses her because she doesn't understand why boys and girls can't get along and play with each other. It led to her rebelling against her parents one day because she didn't want to act like a girl. She hated being told that because she was a girl she had to act a certain way. Being a guy or a girl has certain societal expectations, but these concepts elude her because she doesn't understand why these norms even exist in the first place. This led to her being an outcast, but she found a valuable relationship with her friend, Shu. Shu saw her not as a girl, but as an equal. They have an unwritten rule to only refer to themselves as partners. He was also the only one to fully understand her view of life. When she pushed back against societal norms, Shu understood and accepted her for it. The two of them had then become best friends, and have been that way ever since. They play this game called Space Wars based on an old alien movie they saw. They pretend that they're soldiers in the space army, fighting against the Galactic Imperium. She notes that people have come and gone from the war, aka other kids have joined them, but most of the war has been fought by them. This relationship she has with Shu is invaluable to her because of how Shu and Hinako view each other. They never saw each other as the genders they were, just partners. Which is why the betrayal within the first ending hits especially hard. Shu comes from a long line of pharmacists. From old herbal remedies and creams to modern medicines, they've done it all, even including controlled substances in their treatments. Shu had been recently reading a book called Exotic Herbology and made particular mention of a Kakura Makakura. Supposedly, this was an ancient medicine said to let the user speak with their inner self. Shu had concocted the
Yep, we had found the notes for this specifically. Mentioned it earlier, but did not connect it that Shu was intentionally giving this to her in order to maybe get her to think otherwise and kind of call off the wedding.
This medicine and started dosing it to test its effects. He was having a full-blown, vivid conversation with another version of himself. This revelation made him decide to give the pills to Hinako. He believed that she could use this to decide on the marriage, as she was still struggling to make a decision. It's clear, though, that he did this with the intent of having her choose him.
Yeah.
He notes how he thinks this marriage of hers is a farce, already taking a side on the matter despite this being about Hinako making her own choices. And the final line mentions how, with this, she will be able to see who really has her best interests at heart. But he realizes that what he's done is incredibly wrong. The drugs did not have the desired effect and ended up making Hinako spiral, leading to ending 1.
Holy shit, Shu. Man. This is like one heck of a thing that you've done. But I guess this is probably par for the course when it comes to Silent Hill. Like, every character is messed up a little bit inside. Kind of just like how we are.
On ending 2, he admits that this was stupid of him to do when he should have just been happy for his partner. Hinako ultimately forgives him, still seeing how much of a positive impact he's made on her life, which is why she can never find it in her heart to hate him. But it's clear that this choice will affect him, regardless of how much he wants to hide it. He clearly cares about Hinako. That part's obvious. But notes and
It's always been
dialogue from
obvious.
Rinko convey that he hasn't stopped thinking about her. The mention of Hinako being dead during the middle school chapter is a reference to this. Notes from Rinko also claim that Shu, even after Hinako went off to get married, still plays Space Wars all by himself. There is no further continuation
Damn.
of these notes, however.
Bro's living in the past with a love that has already gone away, who's gone off to marry somebody else. He just doesn't want to accept it. That's so sad. Okay, that very much explains why Rinko is like, she's already dead, as in, she's already married someone else.
So we'll never know if Shu ever got over her and moved on. But Shu isn't the only one who's manipulated or treated her poorly. Her friends Rinko and Sakuko are arguably just as bad.
Okay, so what was this about? Like, is her calling us a traitor? Was it because we left? Because we had made promises that we'd be like friends forever or something like that, and then we went to get married?
Sakuko's first and final line to Hinako in-game is calling her a traitor.
Yeah.
Sakuko is incredibly spiritual. She says that a god visits her in her dreams and that there is a war between two gods over the followers being stolen.
Oh, she
She
knew.
also mentions that she can occasionally hear voices and singing in her head. Notes from the middle school also show us that she finds solace in the school's rabbits and talks to them quite frequently. This has led to her being seen as the weird one at school. Sakuko doesn't have any friends, but Hinako was able to see through this and accept her for who she was, leading her to becoming her first proper friend. However, Sakuko had made Hinako promise that they would do everything together, including having a boyfriend at the same time. No
Really?
exceptions. So
What
when
the hell?
Koto Yuki asked for her hand in marriage, Sakuko was pissed and felt that she was being abandoned by her friend, causing her to develop a deep resentment for her, which is why she always calls her a traitor. Rinko, on the other hand, is incredible.
Holy hell. How would you even do that? How would you coordinate that? We gotta get boyfriends at the exact same time, okay? Or else you're a traitor to me. You're dead to me. I don't know if love really works that way, but maybe back then, or honestly, Sakuko was also just a little bit too dependent on others to live. There are people out there like that, and it's really sad to see.
Jealous of Hinako for how easily she can cozy up to Shu. Hinako has essentially found herself in a love triangle, where Rinko loves Shu, Shu loves Hinako, while Hinako initially doesn't seem to care too much about relationships, although she does later admit that she is interested in him to an extent. Now mind you, Hinako has never actually cared that Rinko is interested in Shu, but she knows Shu best. That's why she said that if she isn't interested in rolling around in the mud and catching insects, she's not going to get very far with him. Rinko was raised traditionally, so she has lots of womanly hobbies and interests, like dolls, fashion, and clothes. So it's clear that it was never going to work out.
Yeah.
It's led to her viewing Hinako with such hatred that she sees her as beneath her. In fact, Rinko has a massive superiority complex. She sees practically everyone as beneath her, that she's only being nice to them out of the kindness of her heart because they're so pathetic that they wouldn't be able to operate without her. This superiority complex is meant to mask her insecurities because she is incredibly jealous of Hinako. Despite being told numerous times, she always asks if both her and Shu are together. Even after all this time, she's still unconvinced and has started spreading rumors about her at school. The girl's attitudes are further elaborated on in some notes we find in-game.
Okay, so yeah, this part, I can see it now, where it's actually real rumors being spread about Hinako at school by Rinko, who's incredibly jealous of her and the position that she was in regards to being friends with Shu and being so close to each other. Of course, I had never experienced this myself, but from what I've heard, when it comes to bullying between female classmates, that is something you do not want to be in between. Things get pretty intense there. Because, like, personally, when it came to stuff like that between guys, you just kind of talk to each other, you clear things up, and if you couldn't talk to each other, well, you went out back, and a few fists were flung around, and things would get resolved in the end. You'd also probably end up friends.
Sakuko talks about killing Hinako or cutting off her arms and legs. A few notes are from the girls asking the gods to kill her or take her away. One note of Sakuko's, though, seems to imply that an evil spirit had took over her when writing a diary entry. So this could be a literal evil spirit that is possessing the girls and making them out to be monsters to Hinako.
Perhaps.
This could very well even be the purpose behind the monster versions of them in the Dark Shrine world. Sakuko's monster is of a Miko, or Shrine Maiden, reflecting her admiration for the spiritual. She has a move where she uses a light when within the darkness, which you can put out if you attack her, a reference to her fear of the dark. Rinko's monster is of a
Oh, that's actually really cool. Didn't connect that.
priest consumed by the fires of jealousy, who has puppets that she commands. In the same way that Rinko was jealous of Hinako's relationship with Shu, and how she always saw herself as above everyone else.
Were the puppets simply just like her manipulating classmates into also hating Hinako by spreading those rumors, or is it literally just the superiority complex that she has?
Thus treated those lower than her like puppets.
I see.
There are a lot of ways to look at these fights. We could take the aforementioned interpretation and assume that the Dark Shrine world manifested some evil entity to kill Hinako. But you could also view it as a more bizarre showing of their final conversation. Sakuko mentions how she knows that Hinako doesn't want to be here, also urging her to stay with her, while Rinko and her hurtle insults at each other. The two are finally being honest about their feelings of the other, something Hinako mentions at the end of the fight, and Rinko mentions in a note found in-game.
Yeah.
One could also say that these complex emotions, from the boss fights to the notes, symbolize the various emotions and often the intrusive thoughts people have.
I mean, there are several moments throughout the story where you can kind of one-to-one a boss battle to a heated conversation that you could possibly have with somebody. I mean, both are conflicts. One is just more physical than the other.
The reason I believe these to be intrusive is that they are not only next to notes that are more heartfelt and genuine, but by the end, both girls apologize. Silent Hill F is structured rather differently from the other Silent Hill games. I'll discuss this in the ending section a bit more, but not every ending is available to you right away. Certain endings can only be unlocked on specific New Game Plus cycles. As such, the narrative...
Interesting. So the other Silent Hill games, you can get literally any ending depending on your choices. Honestly, with my initial disappointment of going into that first ending, it would have been softened a lot if I had at least known from the main menu that there were several endings to potentially unlock. In some aspects, maybe you could see that as a spoiler, but yeah, with the way that I felt about the game at the end there and getting kind of cheated out of knowing what was happening, it didn't feel too good. Glad that I'm here now, though, and that a lot of my suspicions are confirmed here, with some more information provided to us from the other endings. Like, I think if I had taken the time to play through the other endings, I definitely would have come to a similar conclusion here. So many things just reaffirm it.
Is almost progressing throughout the playthroughs. Both girls' final entries in their journals are reflections on their actions and how they feel horrible for how they treated her. These can only be found on New Game Plus Plus, after 2 or more endings have been completed. The earlier playthrough showed us how much they hated her, but as we continue progressing into the game, we gained more insight into not just the main story, but the characters within it as well. That's why I think these entries were specifically placed this deep into the story. Sakuko recognizes that calling Hinako a traitor was a title born from jealousy. She saw Hinako as so much better than her, and didn't want to be left behind. So when the call came down about the marriage, she felt that Hinako was moving on without her. But these are the acts of a child, and she understands that now, that everyone goes at their own pace, and that just because she's not as far ahead in life as she wants to, doesn't mean she's failing. While Rinko realizes that instead of making a better friend, she made an enemy. Rinko likes Shu, but she never thought to ask Hinako about him. She was so jealous of their relationship together that she never realized that Hinako could have helped her learn what Shu likes, so she...
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm sure Hinako, while she does reveal that she had some interest in there, like, you know, maybe she would have helped you out. Maybe she would have been a good wingman for you. Better to make friends with somebody who's close to the guy that you're going after than to make enemies out of them. But, yeah, we're kids, high school kids, we've all done dumb stuff. That's just how it goes. You live and you learn.
She could impress him. We often think back on our lives and what we've done, especially those times when we made mistakes. The girls had likely done so when they left school and realized how poorly they treated her, despite being considered her friends. But it seems as though Hinako, as kind as she is, understood and forgave them, for they appeared during her wedding and ending 1, although I shudder to think what happened because of that.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, it's about time we talk about those endings. As mentioned earlier, Hinako is in conflict with the other side of her. It's the two sides of herself who are going back and forth in her head, trying to get their point across. Should she go along with the marriage or not? The endings, then, represent the decision she ultimately makes. Ending 1 is basically the nuclear option, where Hinako goes crazy thanks to the pills, and so, coupled with the inability to make a decision, she panics and starts killing everyone.
Holy shit.
She clearly didn't want this life, but saw no way out thanks to society's expectations and standards. It's assumed then that she may have also killed her friends and family as well.
Yeah.
Hinako also has a diary where she says that she wants to kill her family with her bare hands, just like the Shiromuku version of her did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we find that when we're exploring through her house again. Like, damn, these are some intense emotions, but Not gonna lie, there have been moments in my life too where that had been like a thought that had creeped up. We all have our dark moments, so I kind of took it as that.
And Shadow Hinako in her room says that she would do exactly this. Speaking on that, the point of no return starts the moment you enter the Shimizu household. By then you would have already had your ending locked in. So the game adds new puzzle solutions specific to these endings, regardless of puzzle difficulty. Each one acts as a metaphor and foreshadowing of the ending soon to come.
Really?
The puzzle to get to the altar in ending 1 says that the blackbird takes the whitebird, while the whitebird attempts to resist, all while the fox is unaware of the conflict. Meaning Hinako's two halves are struggling to decide what to do, while Kotoyuki has no idea that his bride-to-be is even struggling.
Oh. Yeah, that makes so much sense, actually. Damn, I thought it was just a puzzle thing. Of course, all the gameplay elements would connect to the story as a whole.
The same goes for the conversation with her shadow. One of the first things her shadow says is, quote, "It's weird not to have a grasp of yourself, to not understand your own feelings." Unlike the future endings, which are based on our decisions, ending 1 must be done first. The game's lack of options in this first playthrough is symbolic of Hinako's unwillingness to come up with her own choice. Her own shadow tells her that she must fight to the death with her, that both sides of her mind must fight and decide. One must lose, one must win. That's what we see in endings 2 and 3, where one side of her comes out on top. And why in ending 4, the solution comes from laying down their arms and not fighting. But in ending 1, no one technically wins, because Hinako keeps running away. She doesn't want to make a decision,
loses.
so Shu used his drugs to help her come to one, to talk with herself, just like he was able to. He had hoped that this would make her see him as better than Kotoyuki, but it caused her to spiral and attack everyone. It's without a doubt an ending that takes place in a fictionalized setting. Hinako is not running through the streets of Ibisugaoka. She is at a shrine waiting to be wed and currently fleeing the scene after what she just did.
Yeah.
It's very much a Silent Hill 3, they look like monsters to you moment, except it's actually true. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that throughout the whole game, Hinako has been killing real people, but I do believe that in this moment right here at the end, I think the fictional world that we've been playing in is masking the real world and what's really going on.
I mean, we see everything falling apart around us and monsters attacking us from every which way, especially when you're going through town and you're just going around massacring all the monsters and whatnot. So, as a whole, probably a representation of you going berserk at the shrine.
Every ending after this forbids the player from using the pills.
Yeah.
If Hinako is going to decide what she wants to do, she's going to have to do it herself rather than run away and stay within the safety of the pills that mask her feelings.
She
must confront herself.
Just a really good narrative tool, I guess. The twist was nice, and knowing more information about it now and how it actually affects our main character just really enhances that mechanic that we would normally take for granted. Like, oh, these are just your smaller, minor healing items.
Feelings and her needs if she is to have any chance of making a decision. She even says so herself in her own journal. I have to step up and face what's inside me, even if I don't like what I see. In ending 2, Junko says that Shimizu Hinako no longer exists, once again implying that the younger her is gone and that it's just Hinako now. Further saying that the longer she exists, the more Hinako suffers, aka the more doubts that exist, the worse it gets, and this version does not want to get married, and thus creates more conflict within her.
That makes so much more sense.
This Hinako sees Fox Hinako as the enemy, the one who took her parents and friends away. That's why Fox Hinako corrects her by saying that she didn't, as they're still alive, and she could see them again, just not like when they were kids. Like Junko, Hinako will be a part of a new family, and her old life as a child will be gone. She might still be able to see her parents and friends, but they will have moved on and continued living their lives. It won't be like it's back in middle school anymore. What ends the conflict is an item picked up for this ending, the Agura no Hote Sama. It said that the potion can rid evil spirits, but if the user harbors guilt within them, it will also take them with it. Taken literally, this is another continued mention of the game's mythology and religions. Metaphorically, I could see it as her ridding herself of her previous doubts, her other self, as she ultimately decides to marry Kotoyuki, but it's Shu who would be the one to object to it. But even he is sensing an internal struggle within himself, because he knows that he should be happy for his friend for getting married. So Hinako decides.
I get it, I do, but I would never give my friend freaking pills to make them trip out, start tripping balls, start talking to their inner self, and maybe they'll choose me? That's pretty far-fetched, but I guess when you're desperate, and you have the means to... Man, once again, yeah. At some point in time, we were all stupid high school kids.
Decides to talk it out with him. Even though he wanted to stop things, she could never hate him. They've been friends since they were kids, and he was the only one willing to accept her for who she was. During the boss fight, she says that they will fight this alien together as partners, a reference to their days of Space Wars.
Yeah.
That's why the dialogue throughout this fight is of them reminiscing on the good old days. Shu wanted to stay in the past, but he realizes that Hinako needs to grow up, spread those wings of hers, and being married is part of that. So in reality, the ending is likely them talking about Hinako and her future. The two of them are thinking of the past, talking about their issues, before Shu decides that Hinako is right, and that this is her decision to make, and that he should be happy that his friend found happiness. It's why the boss fight ends how it begins, with him standing there. They were talking it out together. The reason why this isn't considered a good ending is because she realizes that in doing this, she'll end up just like her mother, something she clearly doesn't want. Her face being removed like before represents her loss of identity, and the fact that it gets left behind when she walks away and is later stepped on implies that these thoughts will eventually be silenced.
Yeah.
Like her mother, she will be complacent, stuck in the marriage, and due to society, will be unable to return home as it's considered shameful. This is her new life, and it's an outcome she does not desire. On the other hand, ending 3 isn't good either. Most of the content leading up to this ending is about Hinako and Shu. She recalls the times they played Space Wars together, and the talks they had when Shu learned about her being married off. He tells her though that it's her decision, but just make sure not to rush things, as she has a habit of rushing through decisions. Her shadow asks if something is wrong with her. She claims to be feeling love, but she isn't exactly sure what that's supposed to feel like. Hinako says that it's very likely that the feelings she has for Kotoyuki are not the same feelings she has for Shu. Upon hearing this, she asks Hinako to kill her, once again meaning kill the idea, the doubt, but in this case it's the opposite. Rather than killing the doubt of declining the marriage, it's the doubt of accepting it. It's just as the doll says, Shimizu Hinako will live, while she, Fox Hinako, will die.
Then is the doll like a representation of our child self? Somebody who's still living in the past, trying to cling on to that? And obviously they hear the Shimizu Hinako shall live, you shall die is the whole like past self who wants to be free, wants to remain here, doesn't want to be married off sort of side.
Junko understands her position, saying that something like this is always going to be terrifying, in reference to the marriage. But Hinako corrects her by saying that it's not about whether she can or can't do the marriage, it's about whether she wants to in the first place. She should be able to choose her partner herself. Junko and Fox Hinako tell her though that it's too late for her to say this, while Hinako once again corrects them by saying that there is no right or wrong time. Kotoyuki can't accept this though, and so they fight. Once again, taken literally, this is his Fox heritage coming through, as he is attempting to force her to wed him, even saying that he tried to abide by the rules of human courtship, but he no longer can if it means losing his bride. Metaphorically, Kotoyuki and Hinako are talking about their differences. The redness of the fox begins to melt away, revealing the orange fur, with Kotoyuki himself appearing every so often, showing us that she is eventually getting through to him. By the end, he calms down and realizes that she was right. He loved Hinako since they were kids, and tried to be the best at school to provide her with a better life. He assumed his status, reputation, and wealth would swoon her, but Hinako cares very little for that. She cares about love and wants to make her own decisions. Back at the shrine, Kotoyuki says that he can handle things on his own. Again, literally, this means confronting the fox that possessed him to tell him that he failed. Looking at it from another perspective, I think it's his grandfather who would be upset that Kotoyuki let himself get stood up at the wedding, leaving him without a wife despite being the leader of the Tsuneki clan.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, in that position, that'd be one hell of a thing to say. Like, my wife left me on my wedding day when you gathered everybody here and you're kind of like the new head of the household. One whose previous head had just recently passed away, so you're kind of the hope there. I definitely wouldn't want to be in Kotoyuki's position in that regard, but you can kind of also see how he thinks whenever Hinako brings up this sort of argument to him. It's just like, well, what are you gonna do, right?
He would likely be shamed for this, but he knows that this is right, and that Hinako's happiness is more important, even if that means he's no longer a part of it. But this too is not a good ending. This is certainly one of the happier endings within the game. I do not consider it to be the best one though, as the final ending is the only one without some negative consequence or twist reveal. It's better than the others because she got to speak her true feelings and leave the wedding. But it doesn't comment on Shu and his pills, and most importantly, I don't believe it lets her grow up. One of the reasons she goes with Kotoyuki in ending 2 is because he would be able to give her a future. Being with Shu is like staying in the past. The two of them will likely just go back to playing Space Wars again.
Forever.
But Hinako needs to grow up. She needs to spread those wings of hers, and I do not believe that staying with Shu is the right answer for that. The geysers, though, I think, other than the literal interpretation, represent her mind. In Ending 4, the town is described as quiet, which I take it to mean that her mind is at peace and full of clarity. This would then mean that she is basically running away from the town, running away from her future, thus it is destroyed, as she will likely continue to stay the same without room for growth. At least that's how I saw it, although I admit I'm not fully confident in that interpretation myself. But it's through the—
I can see where that interpretation would come from. And I'm sure somebody else may come up with a different perspective on that. If we're assuming all this is happening in her mind, then I think the whole representation of the town being silent is, that makes sense. Otherwise, why else would they add the little tidbit afterwards with the whole, like, the geysers are now spouting out poison and people are being told to evacuate? There wouldn't have been a need for that unless if they wanted to suggest something ominous was happening here, that it wasn't like the best choice that you could make. But it is certainly a choice that I definitely know a few people who are kind of there and just haven't really changed.
These endings that the path of clarity can be revealed. In completing the true ending, Hinako realizes that she doesn't need to fight with herself. Back at her house, she talks to her mom and dad. You'll recall that she has a very jaded view of her family because of her childhood, but these talks change that a bit. She thought that her mom just took her father's punishments and never stood up for herself, but that's not true. There was actually an argument that they had where her father apologized. Hinako's dad believed that a father should strike fear into his children, as he was the head of the house, and thus made the rules. But he knows that this was wrong, so he apologizes. He made Hinako fear men, and fear what they do to women, which is why her father reassures her that Shu and Kotoyuki are great guys who care for her, a sentiment reinforced by the second ending. But ultimately, it's her choice whether to get married or not, and to whom. Hinako hated her parents, hated her mom for being weak and putting up with her husband's abuse, and her father for being abusive and treating them all terribly, but both apologized for causing harm or worrying her. She finally got the closure she needed, and she no longer sees her parents as these hateful creatures. That's why during the boss fight against them, she tells the corruption to stop ruining her view of them, as she knows who they truly are now, whereas in the other endings, this was never said.
Interesting, okay. So yeah, there is more added context as you're playing throughout the game with the different endings, obviously, but I was wondering the way that it would be represented in-game through the gameplay. And that kind of reminds me a little bit of how Replicant did it, but I guess because I went to Replicant knowing I'd have to replay the game multiple times, that was more so just a thing that I expected.
Further, a talk with Junko reaffirms her stance that what she values most in life is choice. She may make the wrong decisions, but she would rather make a bad choice herself than a correct one made by someone else. It's rather telling that a unique collectible in this location is a blank canvas for an art project. The first stroke has yet to be made, but
yeah, infinite possibilities. Damn, dude. That's deep. And I mean that in an unironic way, but like, yeah, we use that so much as a joke that it's kind of funny every single time it's mentioned. But no, quite literally, like, from here on, it's really your life to decide. And that's a great message to have.
Possibilities are endless. It's up to her to decide what to paint, same as she decides what to do with her life. That's why when the two Hinakos confront each other one more time, they agree to stop fighting. Both of them don't understand why they have to fight, why one has to win while the other has to lose. This is when we get the lore drop of both Hinakos being pawns in a fight between two gods. This part, about the gods, Inari killing people who disrespect his shrines, it's certainly the strangest part of the game for sure, and part of the reason I was even questioning if any of these metaphors were even real.
So, yeah. Does this kind of throw out the whole wedding thing, and then it's actually happening, that these two gods are actually warring against each other, or are they representations of something else?
But then right after this fight, Tsukumogami is never seen again, and the nine-tailed fox is described as drunk. Kotoyuki says that he hasn't had this much to drink since his last wedding, so he's a bit rowdy. A pretty odd thing to say about a god that can possess you, right? This leads me to believe that this is one of Kotoyuki's family members upset at the outcome of the marriage. Tsukumogami is also possessed by the doll this time, and not Shu. I haven't exactly talked about the doll in this video yet.
Yeah,
it's appeared at almost every turn, guiding Hinako throughout the game. It is vehemently against Kotoyuki, and will even appear in the fog world to help the other Hinako. The journal notes that the Tsukumogami is designed to be a statue of Ashura. Ashura is of Buddhist mythology. If anyone with more knowledge on the subject can fill in the blanks, that'd be great. But to my understanding, the face of Ashura represents complex human emotions. So, maybe this fight, as dumb as this is going to come off as, is actually a fight between Hinako and society. That the fox may represent her future life as someone else's wife, or just society's expectations for women in this era, while the doll represents her childlike innocence, which she must move on from because she is meant to spread her wings and make her own decisions.
I mean, I don't think that sounds dumb at all. With how metaphorical this game can be taken, like, it's really up to what we want to interpret here. It's hard for me to think of any other representation for this particular thing. And knowing Umineko as well as Higurashi, it may just be that we can take it metaphorically, but it's also literally like a war between two gods that we would never really know about, simply because we're tiny, puny, insignificant humans.
It could also be an attempt to show her moving on and growing as a person by herself.
There's the sword.
In order to get this ending, she must remove the brooch and purify the sacred sword. When you finish all the Jizo shrines, it almost seems like a godlike entity talks through her in order to get her to the sword. Both Tsukumogami and Inari are likely watching over her through these items, so by relinquishing them, she shows that she no longer needs their assistance and can handle this herself. It's clear that she thinks about the world differently than most. She has blurred the lines of gender and what girls and boys are meant to do, and in a society that often accepts its roles that have been laid out, Hinako is choosing to make her own, one that defines her and her alone. That's why she's so particular about choices, and why she should get to choose even if it's the wrong choice. Because that agency and autonomy are valuable to her, but she lives in a world not defined by that yet. She even gets Koto Yuki to understand his side of it too. Hinako never desired any of his wealth or status, all she wanted was a choice. Koto Yuki says it himself, that they both want to know if their love is real, and not some spell. While there is a literal interpretation here with the god's possession and all, a metaphorical look gives us another answer, that the spell that's taken hold is the arrangement. The two of them believe there to be a spark, but is it real love? Or is it just the arrangement getting in the way? That's why the two leave with the intent of coming back to answer that question. Koto Yuki never got the childhood he wanted, so he's living out his inner childhood fantasies, allowing himself to be a kid again. While Hinako will choose how to lead her own life, and think about Koto Yuki and whether that spark was real. Both of them will decide of their own volition to tie the knot.
Hey, I mean, take a break from each other, think about how you actually feel about each other as you discover who you are as a person. I've known many people throughout my life who have done similar things and have come to their own conclusions. So yeah, this makes sense. Also pretty similar to like taking a gap year in between high school and university to really explore the world, find new passions, go out there and discover yourself by traveling around. It's really funny how that works, right? Where so many people maybe invest several years of their life just traveling around the world. And it's all done in an effort to know more about who you are, even though you are who you are and you should probably know who you are the best, but that's not really how it goes. Human beings are just so complex, man. We know so much about the universe, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't know really anything. And while we may think we know who we are, do we truly know who we are?
But if it wasn't meant to be, at least they got to come to that conclusion on their own and made the choice themselves. This could explain why there is no secret twist at the end like the previous endings, and why Ibisugauka is quiet. The corruption is gone, and her mind, while previously noisy and full of doubt and worry, for the first time is quiet and clear. This order of the endings, just like the notes, also makes me wonder if the narrative was designed this way on purpose. Ending 1 is the only ending able to be achieved on your first run-through. Endings 2 and 3 are accessible after the first is complete, and ending 4 is unlocked after 2 or more endings are complete. Notice how the endings themselves seem to be building up to their own conclusion. Ending 1 is the basic option, that left her unable to question herself. When talking with her shadow, she sounds confused, as anyone would in this situation. She has no idea what's going on, no idea who this shadow is or what it wants. In the same way that the player has just been going through the motions. We're just as clueless as she is.
Yep.
That's why it urges her to think about what's really going on, the fact that she has a wedding to attend to, and that soon she'll be married off. Neither the player nor Hinako knows that, so both are left confused. Later, once the ending is revealed and we have time to digest it and look at the facts, such as the true identity of the Shiromuku, we can see things with a bit more clarity. New Game Plus gives us that time to think things over, look at the narrative from a different perspective. Hinako similarly has more time to think about what she wants to do, but it ultimately ends in a either-or decision. Ending 4, though, after 2 full playthroughs, gives the player and Hinako the clarity they need, as they've had more time to think. Hell, one could say that the endings themselves were able to convince her of her true desires. Maybe during that long period of thought, she thought about what would happen if she did go through with it versus not. Maybe these endings are what Hinako thought of when weighing the pros and cons, and that's why they are undesirable to her, as they don't lead.
It could be. Like, all these endings are canonical, and they're just like scenarios that she's run through in her mind about the different choices that she currently has. Like, do I go full nuclear and just kill everybody here and then run away to escape my problems? Do I marry this guy? Do I marry this other guy? Or do I try and seek a different solution? One where I get to make my own choices and stay true to who I am. Regardless of which one you choose, all of these choices are very scary and I guess quite fitting to be a representation in a horror game.
To a happy outcome for her. When talking with Junko in the final chapter, she asks if it's gone, only for her to ask in a repeat playthrough if it's still alive. She was talking about her doubts, her fears of going through with this. Junko will further say that regrets are not resolved quickly, which is why Hinako was given more time. She was given more time to make her decision, aka we were given another playthrough to make another decision and get another ending. Her dialogue is the same for both endings 2, 3, and 4, because Hinako is still weighing the options. To kill one side of her so that the other can win, or seeing if both sides can come together. That's why I believe that the narrative is structured this way. Previous Silent Hill games, and even most games in general, are portrayed as a one-time excursion, where we choose something at the end. Repeat playthroughs give us different perspectives, but it's still the character's first time through. We're just metagaming in a sense because we know what's going to happen. I think Silent Hill F intends for each playthrough and each ending to be a continuation. Not that a different playthrough replaces the previous one, but that every playthrough is sequential. Each ending then isn't the ending of a story per se, but rather the end of an act, with each one giving us more and more answers until we finally conclude.
Okay, like, when you talk about it like that sounds pretty cool, and I get the root of the idea, plus the way that the story is told kind of requires you to progress through the endings in this way, but speaking realistically, I don't have all the time in the world. This is also probably because I was streaming the game too, which made it worse. Like, if I was playing this on my own during my own free time, then I'd probably be able to appreciate this game a lot more and get through all the different endings in my own time if I really, really enjoyed it. But I also personally didn't really like the combat, and the gameplay itself got a little too repetitive, even after, like, the first playthrough, especially during the very last section where you're going through the entire town fighting all the monsters that you had already fought all over again. That was neat from a story perspective, as very dull when it came to a gameplay perspective.
That, I believe, is the true ending, and the real story behind Silent Hill F.
Holy hell, that Silent Hill retrospective is almost 6 hours long, but Jesus. But yeah, man, that was really cool, and I'm glad to know that a lot of my suspicions were going on the right track. We were just missing some details that you kind of have to play through the game again and again in order to really get, because that's how the story is supposed to be told. But as I said previously, yeah, from a gameplay perspective, as well as scheduling the streams and whatnot, it just didn't really work out for me. I'm glad though that Gingy made this video so that I can still get to enjoy the story. I do agree with Gingy's interpretation of the story here. That said, there's always a part of me that wonders whether or not, like, the artist took into account, like, different interpretations of certain events and why the author specifically wrote it in this way so that it could be interpreted in multiple ways for people. Because I think art as a whole can mean a different thing to a different person, and whatever really resonates with you is the true meaning behind it for you. Which may also be why I've heard some, like, mixed things about this particular game. And probably for the other Silent Hill games too. I assume that there are going to be those who may believe in one thing or subscribe to a different idea in regards to that thing. Like I said, I don't know much about the previous Silent Hill games, but just based off of this story, and if the other Silent Hill games are at all going down, like, the same avenue, then I would assume they'd be quite contentious in that regard. But yeah, my dudes, if for some reason you haven't already, please go support Gingy, link at the top of the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.